The other day, when I was with Noah, I can't recall what we were talking about, but at one point he turned to me and he said, "Dad, I need a bucket full of money." So I thought, right, okay. So I went downstairs into the kitchen. I got a stainless steel mixing bowl. And I brought it up. I put it on the bed. I said, "Here, hold this." And I got my gumball machine. Now my gumball machine, I've been throwing silver in for quite some time now. So Noah held the bucket, and I dumped out the gumball machine. And whoosh, this whole flood of coins came pouring out. I was like, "All right, you got your bucket full of money. Get out of here." So he took off with his bucket full of money. It was heavy, actually. He was having some problems carrying it. So later on, we took some time and we counted it up to see what was in there. And there was $384 in there, which is certainly more than I intended to give him at the time. But, the gift given, right? So it's his now. It's his to do what he wants. So, it ended up being a bigger gesture than what I had really anticipated. But that's okay. But it got me thinking, though, about the cumulative effect of small repeated actions. A lot of times we think that the world gets changed by big things, and that only makes sense to us, because the world is a big place. So if you're going to change the world, you also have to be big. And a lot of times we can use that as a way of letting ourselves off the hook, so to speak, because I don't have $1 billion to give away, and I'm not the leader of a country, and nor am I CEO of a big company, and who am I? I don't have any power. I can't change the world. So I'll just go about my day-to-day living, and somebody else can change the world. But that's not actually the way that the world works. And it's certainly not the way that God's kingdom works. Now, Jesus, when he was speaking, he described the kingdom of God, and he said, the kingdom of God is like the yeast that a woman mixes into her loaf. And when we think about that, yeast is this tiny little organism. You can't actually see a yeast. When we get the yeast in the grocery store, you can see it because there's like millions of them clumped together, and that's why you can see these little grains of sand kind of thing. But you can't actually even see an individual yeast. And yet that teaspoon of yeast that you put in, it's the thing that actually makes the bread, because without the yeast, your bread would be like just a cracker, right? It'd be like a brick. You'd bust your teeth off on it. It would just be this solid block. But it's these little microscopic yeasts that we can't even see that produce gases that make the loaf rise and makes it all delicious and edible and everything. So it's actually really the smallest ingredient within that loaf is the very thing that changes its fundamental nature. And the world is actually much like that as well, too. That rather than huge things changing the world, it's actually small things. When I was in grade 6, I guess, Mr. Moore, I remember one recess, I didn't want to go outside. And I can't remember what was going on, fighting with my parents at home or something. I just was not in the mood to be out playing with a bunch of kids. So I just sat at my desk being all moody and blue and, pre-teeny, right? So my teacher came up, and he didn't actually say anything to me. He sat down for a minute, and he had a banana, and he was scratching on it with the tip of a compass. And he did that for about a minute, and he put it down, and he walked away. And then I sat there looking at that banana, and over the course of a couple of minutes, when the air hit the scratches, it all oxidized, and all the scratches turned brown. And this image of this wizard emerged off of this banana as I watched. And it was really interesting because that little act, that I bet you Mr. Moore doesn't even remember doing it, that small act impacted me in such a way that here I am 40 years later telling you about it. Just that small act of kindness that he didn't he didn't force me to go outside with the other kids and do what I was supposed to do, nor did he force me to try and be happy. He didn't force me to share. Like he just did this gentle act of caring and walked away. And these are the kinds of things, actually, that change the world. Now, the other thing is that they have to be cumulative as well, too, right? So one small act of kindness will not change the world, and one quarter in my gumball machine is not really going to have much of a difference. But if we habitually do these small, kind acts, so even just an encouraging word to somebody, helping your neighbor out, as we make our families these nicer places to be by our continual small acts, then that affects our neighborhood, which then affects our city, which affects our province, which affects our country, which affects the world. Because honestly, there is no end to the good that you can do by continually doing small acts for other people. Because let's face it, even if we were in the position of doing some grand good work that would change the world, we might find that we wouldn't actually do it when we had the opportunity. Because certainly, if Noah came up to me yesterday and said, "Dad, I need $384," my response would have been, "Yeah, so do I. Let me know when you get it." So often when we get the opportunity for the big grand act, we don't so much do it. I don't know. I mean, most of us think about the last time you gave away $1,000. But it's these small acts that, just these little acts that when we do them again and again over time, these little investments, these little drips, they become a flood. And this is how we change the world. So my encouragement is go out there and do a whole bunch of little things today. And go out there and do a whole bunch of little things tomorrow. And just wait and see what kind of an effect that has over the course of a couple of years.